My grandfather didn't spend much time with me while I was growing up. When word came that he'd passed, the best I could offer was a flat, automatic condolence. That indifference flipped to guilt when I learned he'd left me everything. It probably had less to do with me and more to do with the rift between him and my parents. As his only grandchild, I was an obvious name to write down. I half imagined him and his lawyer pulling a name out of a hat. Whatever the reason, I appreciated the gesture, though I didn't expect much. I pictured old war bonds, a few threadbare suits, and keepsakes without modern value. I was curious in a distant way, then forgot about it until the inheritance landed on my doorstep. A few weeks after the funeral, a single large package arrived with all of his belongings. As expected, photo albums, some antiques, a pocket watch, a box of ancient TV guides. But one thing snagged my attention, a wrapped present addressed to Abigail, my grandmother. She died shortly after giving birth to my father. I figured he never got the chance to give it to her. Holding the unopened gift stirred a small, dull grief for both of them. My father had told me for years how much he missed her. Abigail was the love of his life. He wanted to run off with her to Paris and start over. That was the dream. Pregnancy, then death, turned the dream into a dead end. Curiosity outweighed sentiment. I could have kept the package sealed, left their memory untouched. That would have been proper. I wasn't feeling proper. I tore into the paper so fast a corkscrew of dust shot up and fogged my glasses. I wiped them clean and looked at the gift he never gave. A Ouija board, of all things. Beneath the paper was a note and a small instruction sheet. To my dearest Abigail, the note read. The shopkeeper says this is a special board built to grant wishes. If we wish hard enough, maybe we can finally make it to Paris. The instructions seemed to back him up. Property of Grovewood & Co., an emporium of mystical artifacts. Use with utmost caution. This one-of-a-kind Ouija board can manifest your deepest desires. If used properly, you will never need anything again. Follow these steps. Remove the planchette from its compartment. Slide the planchette over the board to spell out whatever you desire. Return the planchette to its compartment to complete the ritual. Repeat as often as you wish, but never attempt to undo a previous wish. It will not end well. Enjoy. What a strange gift. Sweet and strange. I set the board with the rest of his things and carried everything to the attic. That's where I thought it would remain. Life had other plans. Months passed. My grandfather and his box of artifacts faded to the back of my mind. Veronica filled the front. We'd been together 7 years, long enough, she said, to go our separate ways. I was wrecked. I didn't realize the size of the hole until she said goodbye. Heartbreak, I realized, had a lineage in my family. I drank too much that night. Whiskey and a concentrated mixture of grief and anger. I wondered if this was anything like what my grandfather felt when Abigail died. That's when I remembered the wrapped gift he'd meant for her. Maybe I needed a distraction, or a way to blunt the ache. Drunk and stupid, I went to the attic to find the Ouija board. It was beautiful work, hand-etched wood, a built-in side compartment for a gleaming ivory planchette, and an odd arrangement of characters on the face. A mountain of letters shrank in size the higher they climbed, all pointing to a large ampersand at the top. I wasn't a Ouija expert, but I knew they didn't make them like this. An idea sparked. I skimmed the instructions, took up the planchette, and slid it across the board. I focused what little willpower my drunken brain could gather and spelled the thing I wanted most. With every scuff of ivory on wood, with each letter to letter, I tried to force the universe to bend. I knew the relationship needed to end, and that she'd be happier apart from me. I didn't want to ruin that for her. Still, I needed closure. I wished for one more day with her, just one, for old time's sake. I didn't believe in magic, but I let myself pretend for a minute to ease the hurt. It was cathartic. After the wish, I stumbled to bed, fell face first into the sheets and blacked out. I dreamt hard and dark. My grandparents walked through Paris until the scenery melted into a tar-black sludge. Abigail gave birth, not to my father, but to the Ouija board. My grandfather used the board to wish for a child, then tried to take it back. Every dream ended in the same still image. The ampersand at the top of the board growing, filling my field of view. Bizarre doesn't cover it. I woke to a violent pounding at the front door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Hungover and queasy, I looked out and saw Veronica on my porch, composed, beautiful, waiting. Had the board worked? Coincidence? I didn't care. Heart racing, I opened the door. "I'm here," she said simply. "But why?" "How?" "Don't ask questions," she said. "Just enjoy the time we have." It had to be the board. She should have been on a flight back to her family in Canada. Nothing would have kept her from them, especially not me. It worked, so I didn't question it. I took the gift and held onto it with both hands. If a perfect day could be compressed out of 7 years, we had it. Every good moment chained to the next. We even made love that night. As we drifted off, my arm around her waist, I thought, if this is the end, it's a good one. Bittersweet, but enough to keep me going. Or so I believed. I woke to horror. My arm was still around her waist, but not the living, breathing woman I'd fallen asleep beside. I was holding a blackened pile of bone and ash. What I felt was beyond shock. My blood turned to ice. My heart seemed to slide lower in my body and pound there like a second stomach. I couldn't move. I could only think of the board and the exact wording of the wish I'd made. I got precisely what I asked for, exactly 24 hours with her. Now she was gone, not just from me, but from the world. Her family would wait at an empty gate. Her friends would call and call. Her smile would never brighten another room. The life she wanted would never happen. All gone, because of me. Numb, I gathered her fragile remains into a cardboard box and carried it to the attic, placing it beside my grandfather's things. I grabbed lighter fluid and a book of matches and went back for the board. If I couldn't undo the wish, I could at least destroy the tool that granted it. I raised the bottle, then hesitated. It worked once. Why not again? The instructions said I could repeat wishes as often as I wanted. I pulled the planchette, spelled "bring her back," and returned it to the compartment. I waited. Nothing. I waited longer. Still nothing. Rage flared at myself, at the wood, at the empty room, and I hurled the board against the wall. I hadn't noticed I was crying until tears hit the floor. I missed her with a pain that felt mutinous. I understood suddenly the lightless hole my grandfather had lived with. Footsteps overhead cut through my grief. The attic. I ran upstairs, breathless, a smile already forming. I threw the door open, ready to catch Veronica in my arms. She was standing, but she wasn't alive. The box lay on its side. The blackened bones and ash I'd laid to rest were on their feet and moving. Her head turned toward me, the skull tilted, and then she ran. I slammed the door as her fingers clawed, tearing a strip of fabric from my shirt. She hit the wood again and again, rattling the deadbolt. She was back in some way and furious. I staggered downstairs. My phone rang, her parents. She'd never arrived in Montreal. Her friends said she'd stopped to see me first. "No, not here," I blurted, staring out at her car still in my driveway. The pounding upstairs grew louder. I could hear it bleeding into the call. "Sorry." "Now isn't," I hung up and the phone rang again. The banging continued. The two rhythms fused into a headache that pressed pain into every nerve. I needed out. I grabbed the board. Hands shaking, I ripped the planchette free. The attic door splintered. Steps thundered down the stairs. I didn't have time to think. I dragged the planchette across the letters and wished to be left alone. I shoved it back into place and closed my eyes. Silence. No phone, no footsteps. No sound at all. I opened my eyes to an empty street. No cars, no neighbors, no birds. I walked the block. Nothing. The wish had been granted literally. To be truly left alone, the world had to be emptied. Another backhanded gift. I sat with the board hollowed out. I couldn't undo what I'd done. I'd already tried that and made a monster. Either way, I was alone. Maybe I deserved it. I had killed my girlfriend. I had erased everyone else. Maybe this was the consequence I'd earned long before the board. 7 years of choosing my needs over hers, taking her for granted, pushing her away. Now I would live with that, my own small purgatory. I hoped there was another world where she lived the life she wanted, loved by someone better than me. Maybe another where my grandparents made it to Paris. I stared at the board. The large ampersand at the top seemed to stare back, as it had in my dreams. Grovewood & Co. the name on the instructions. If anything could fix this, maybe it lived there. I spelled Takemi to Grovewood and Co., using the big ampersand at the top. I returned the planchette. A ring of light spun up around me. The board and I rose, hovered, and dropped. I was in a room without doors or windows. Glass cases, bookcases, a museum-like showroom. I could only assume it was Grovewood and these were its artifacts. I carried the board and walked. Each display had an object and a plaque. An elevator button panel that could replay past events. A plush cat that served as a vessel for demonic entities. A woodsman's axe that drove wielders mad. An amulet that infected bystanders with bloodlust. Nothing helpful. The books on the shelves weren't in any language I recognized. I reached a row of empty cases, including one labeled for a desire-granting Ouija board. My grandfather's board. I wondered what would happen if I returned it. I lifted the glass, placed the board inside, and lowered the cover. A glow pulsed from the wood as if something dormant had clicked into place. Light swelled around me. I rose and fell. I was back home. No pounding upstairs. No dead footsteps. No hollow street noise. I wasn't sure if the world was restored or if another trap was waiting. A knock at the door made me jump. A delivery man stood on my porch with a large package, my grandfather's things. I signed, closed the door, and stared at my phone. A text from Veronica. "We need to talk." I'd never been so happy to see those words. It looked like returning the board had reset everything. I laughed, lifted the box, and headed for the attic. Then I paused. Something about the timing was wrong. Veronica didn't send that text until weeks after I'd first received the package. It was easy to shrug off as a side effect of reality stitching itself back together. I put my hand on the attic doorknob and froze. Footsteps on the other side. I eased the door open. My attic was gone. In its place, glass cases and shelves. The Grovewood showroom. Maybe I'd never really left. Maybe this was the price. A woman stood in the center of the room. Veronica. Skin, posture, voice. "Did you get my message?" she asked. "We really need to talk." "But Veronica, how?" "I'm not Veronica," she said gently. "I chose this form so I wouldn't frighten you. I'm designed to please the owner of the board. I knew you wanted to see her again." "Who are you?" "My chosen name is Ileana," she said. "I am a manifestation of the board and its power." Her dress was a cascade of letters, rising to an ampersand-shaped cutout at her chest. A human version of the board. "You've misused me so badly you've split pieces of the universe in ways that are not easily repaired," she said. "I can help you set things right. Most of my energy went into appearing like this, but I can grant you one final wish. You must choose carefully." "What do I do?" "I can't make your wish for you or suggest one, but I can point you toward knowledge." She held out a planchette which appeared in her hand as if from nowhere. "Use this to read a book behind me, Artifact Cocktails. Dual Forces and Their Effects. The glass will translate the text." I took the planchette, found the book, opened to page 427, and rubbed the glass over the chapter until the characters rearranged themselves into words I could read. The board could be paired with other artifacts. Some combinations were benign, others were lethal. None were obvious solutions. I read again, slower, until one idea formed. "There's another Ouija board here," I said. "If we use both together in a specific way, they can open a portal to view other realms. Not a fix, but a start. Maybe we'll see a better method." "It's not a bad idea," Ileana said. "Like many items in this room, your board has jumped ship more than once. Tune it correctly and we may witness its use in another world. That could reveal a better approach." 2 boards appeared in her hands. She passed them to me. I set them on the floor, one atop the other, my grandfather's on top, and placed each planchette on random letters. Different pairings opened different windows. A long, oval tier opened in the air, showing strange scenes. A man trapped in an attic like mine. A sentient orb drifting through the dark. A frozen landscape untouched by time. A town cut off from the world, full of people who couldn't leave. Fascinating, useless. I cycled through combinations until I had none left. Desperate, I tried odd placements, planchettes on their sides, upside down, hovering. No change. My eyes fell on the one character I hadn't used, the ampersand at the top. I tapped the planchettes together, then pressed both onto the ampersand. A new window opened. A bright, bustling shop filled the view, employees and customers smiling below a polished sign. Grovewood and Company, early days, grand opening era. Ileana's mouth fell open. "That's it," she whispered. "The shop nearly a century ago. You found it. This could be what we need. Look around." I rotated the planchette slowly to change the angle, like a slideshow of viewpoints. I moved through the showroom, so many more artifacts than in my version of the room. Then I centered on a pocket watch with no description on its plaque. Ileana flinched. "What?" I asked. "Nothing," she said. "I just recognized that one. She wasn't with me anymore." "Ileana," I said softly, "what are you thinking? If we had that watch and used it with the board, we might erase what you've done," she said. "I've seen it before. It releases energies. One of them is time travel. It often kills the user." "Perfect," I said. "Focus it with the board and wish for mercy," she said. "Hone the effect to only what you need and maybe you'd survive. We could go back before you use the board and undo the damage." "I thought you weren't allowed to suggest wishes." "I'm not," she said. "And this is a one-way window. Nothing can pass through." My eyes slid across the cases until they landed on a familiar shape. The woodsman's axe. I remembered its plaque. "It caused madness," I pointed. "Can 3 artifacts be used together?" "In theory," she said, "but I've never known anyone to try it. I don't recommend." That was all I needed. I lifted the axe from its case and swung the blade at the window. The backlash hurled me across the room. As my vision narrowed, a smoky dark mist poured from the tier and rushed into Ileana's mouth. She grew, her smile twisting, her eyes flaring blood red. The possessed thing that wore her face raised the axe and charged. For a heartbeat, I missed my undead girlfriend. I dodged, stumbling between cases as glass exploded around me. My knee buckled. I fell beside the boards. The axe came down. I lifted one board as a shield. Steel met wood and bounced. A surge cracked through the air where blade and board touched. Ileana collapsed. The dark mist burst from her and streamed toward me, then froze midair. Ileana sat up, arm extended, fingers locked. She was holding it in place. She swept her arm. The fog snapped back through the window. The cut sealed. "Ileana," I gasped. "I'm sorry, I should have listened. No time," she said, voice thin. "I'm drained. I have almost no energy left. Make the wish now, hurry." I looked into the window at the pocket watch, desperate to own it, desperate to turn time backwards and birth a world where Veronica lived, where Ileana could rest quietly inside the board, where I could be forgiven, a world untouched by my stupidity. The watch looked familiar, not just familiar, known. I sprinted to my grandfather's box and tore it open. I dug past photos and guides until my hand closed on cold metal. I lifted the pocket watch and held it up to the window. An exact match. He must have bought it the day he bought the board. "Ileana, I have it." "Make your wish," she whispered. I set the watch on the ampersand at the top of my board, grabbed the planchette, and wished to go back. Safe passage through time to the first moment I used the board. The watch's hands began to spin counterclockwise. Light rose and lifted me again. I came down on the floor in front of the board and watched back home. I sprinted upstairs. The attic was just an attic. No bones walking. I called Veronica. She answered, baffled and annoyed by my tearful relief, certain it was some clumsy ploy to get her back. I returned to the board and exhaled. It was over. Not quite. One last thing remained. Using the board and the watch together, I sent a letter back to my grandfather, begging him not to visit the shop. If he never bought the items, maybe they would find their way back to their cases. After the wish, both board and watch vanished. It had worked. The aftermath hit like a flood. Memories climbed over each other, fighting to be first. My grandmother didn't die after giving birth to my father. Both grandparents were in my childhood. In fact, they were still alive. Somehow, dodging Grovewood saved them. Something slid through my mail slot. A small package with a postcard from Paris. "We picked this up for you at a boutique here in France. Thought it might cheer you up after your breakup with Veronica. Maybe she'll take you back. Take care of yourself. We love you." I opened the box. Inside was a ring and a note. Property of Grovewood & Co., an emporium of mystical artifacts.